Welcome to Homeside Chats. This is Andrea French, Executive Director for TAG, Transportation Advocacy Group. For today's episode, we're joined by Waller County Judge Trey Duhon. Welcome, Judge.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
So we appreciate your time today, too. We know county judges are extra busy these days. And I wondered if you could start off by telling us a little bit about how things started with the onset of COVID for Waller County and kind of bring us to where you are now and the response and how you're managing things amidst a pandemic.
Well, it is a new reality, especially if you're a county judge in the state of Texas. We're exhausted, honestly. It's been interesting to say the least. You know, I tell people when it comes to emergency management, especially, this is not like anything we've ever seen. And you know, Waller County has been through a lot. Just in the first 3 years that I was county judge, you know, we had 5 floods and 4 of them were FEMA level events. And then you had Hurricane Harvey. And, you know, in all honesty, those events, you prepare for them, they happen, you make sure people are safe, and then you rebuild and you recover and you move on. And, you know, the whole thing takes a matter, you know, it happens within a matter of a few weeks. You know, the rebuilding process may take longer, but it happens and then it's over and you get back to normal. And this is just completely different than all of that. You know, it's sustained, it's day after day, it's, you know, changing the way we do things, changing the way we operate, being aware of the risks, making sure that people are aware of them. And it is very challenging. What I try to explain to folks, especially in the position of county judge, that a lot of people don't realize, it's the sheer volume of information that you receive on a daily basis. Hundreds of emails with updates from different state agencies, different procedures, different policies that are having to be changed. And it gets to the point where, you know, it's overwhelming, and you've got to do your best to keep up to speed with it. Because at the end of the day, you know, that's your job, is to make sure public health and safety for the folks here in Waller County remains a priority, and we do what we need to do to keep people safe. From the early days, Waller County, early on, we were faring the pandemic really well. We didn't even have our first confirmed case until much later into March and then early April, when we actually first had cases, whereas everyone around us was showing reported cases. And in fact, we didn't even have a recorded fatality until just a few weeks ago. Now, that may have had a lot to do with the way the statistics were being reported, the numbers from Department of State Health Services. They've now switched over and they're using the death certificates. So we went from 0 to 5 fatalities literally on a Sunday, which was confusing. And then we went from 5 to 2. And apparently because some of those death certificates were misclassified or miscategorized. So it's been frustrating, to say the least. You know, since then now we have probably I know we're well over 500 confirmed cases per Department of State Health Services. Right now they're showing us with 5 fatalities. As far as the county goes, I mean, things are really going well. I think for the most part, when I'm out and about, I think everybody is trying to do their part, trying to make sure they follow protocols, that they wash their hands, they wear a mask in public, they watch their social distance. I kind of joke around, you know, a little bit, that Waller County invented social distancing. That's the reason a lot of people are here in Waller County, is because they want a little bit more space.
Right.
And I'm thinking probably a lot more people might be heading our way.
That could be.
After this is all said and done. But, you know, for the most part, though, as far as our approach, it's hard, you know, it's even hard to know what data is reliable, what numbers are reliable, what you see in the media, whether or not you can even trust that. I mean, obviously, everything's politically charged these days. We're in the middle of a presidential election. So I try to focus on numbers I know are real. I like to look at the Texas Medical Center and where they are in terms of ICU beds,
Right.
and making sure that we're within the capacity of our healthcare system. And right now we are. We're doing, things are looking good in that respect. So beyond that, we have really, other than encouraging people to follow the protocols, we have not taken an approach of mandating, how folks are going to conduct their lives or how they're going to operate their business. I think we have to learn how to coexist with this virus, at least for the time being. And everybody's going to have to figure that out for themselves. And if you're at a higher risk, you're a higher category, then you probably should be limiting your movement a lot more than somebody who might not be as a high risk as a category. So we've tried as good, and I think we've done a good job. I mean, I have not, other than our emergency order, I have not had an order in place other than what the governor has for several months. And basically, we're just following what the governor has put out there. We do our best to go along with that, and that's where we are right now. I think we're faring things pretty well. We actually, we are in close proximity to Houston and Harris County, so our numbers probably reflect a little of that. But we are using some of the funds we've received from the CARES Act. We're in the process of engaging right now a contract with Access Health, so that maybe in the next few weeks we can start to provide some ongoing testing here in Waller County for our residents. You have to remember, unlike Harris County, Fort Bend County, Montgomery County, we did not get a large sum of money given to us by the federal government. Our money was given to the state, and now we have to basically go to the state on our hands and knees and ask for that bit by bit.
Okay.
We got allocated about 1.6 million total for Waller County. You can compare that with our neighbors who got literally hundreds of millions of dollars that just got transferred to them outright. So folks that wonder why we haven't provided assistance to our businesses or provided testing before now is because we didn't get the money like they did. But nevertheless, we're gonna do some testing. We're also gonna help our school districts. We're gonna allocate some of that money to our school districts to help our students, especially low-income students, stay connected. Connectivity, huge issue in Waller County. Not a lot of folks don't have access to broadband. So we have to make sure these kids have the equipment they need to stay connected and do their lesson plans, especially in this new reality. So we're just staying on top of these things and making sure people stay updated on a daily basis. And so far, I think we've done a good job of that.
Well, it sounds like it, and it certainly sounds your hands are on the pulse of everything. So talking from everything from the onset to where we are today, and then kind of looking forward with school is kind of, I think that's the next phase, right? As children return to school or virtual or combination, making sure that access is granted and available, which is a challenge, statewide. And I think what your comments about some of the funding and the needs and the cases, and it's really reflective of a large swath of Texas with a lot of rural areas and rural counties. And, sitting in Houston, people often are looking through that lens, right? The more urban lens. But the reality is that we have 254 counties in Texas. And so that's 254 very different landscapes to manage. So I really appreciate you walking us through all of that.
Yeah, I think, when we did our strategic plan for the county several years ago, broadband access was identified as a major thing we needed to look at and try to address. This pandemic has underscored that more than ever.
Absolutely.
And so working with private industry, trying to figure out maybe different public-private partnerships, whatever the case is. And I understand why broadband lacks in rural areas. The business model doesn't work as well. But we've got to figure out a way around that and get the folks access, because unless you live in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, one of the major metropolitan areas, you probably have a problem with broadband access in Texas. And you're right, out of our 254 counties, the vast majority of those are rural counties.
Right.
So to me, and I've had some really great conversations with Congressman McCall's office, because I've said, look, if we're going to be doing, if you're going to go in and provide these levels of funding, we should be setting a good amount of that aside for rural broadband. because
Right.
that's what we need.
Well, and I have said since the first couple of chats that I've done is, a tag, we talk about the physical infrastructure, or right, kind of the mobility piece of infrastructure, but really and truly the infrastructure moving forward is that layered with broadband infrastructure.
Right.
And it was, the highway system was part of the huge recovery, after World War II. Well, I really believe that the broadband is going to be coupled closely with kind of the mobility infrastructure to move us out of this and to help us recover. Because if you're not
I
connected,
agree.
your economy is going to be halted, much more significantly. So
No,
absolutely. Yeah. And,
no,
and talk,
I agree.
yeah. And talking about kind of access and being connected. I know that there is a senior population in Waller County that needs kind of access to things. Probably is a bit more restrained in their activities, their daily movements. And one of the things, a lot of rural counties, we talk about transit. Many people think of it as an urban concept, but in more rural counties, transit also involves senior transit, right? So
Sure.
kind of there's mobile services and kind of delivery and ride services. So I'm also curious how that has looked through COVID, and if it's provided some light on some other needs that might be needed for Waller County.
Right. No, it definitely underscores all of that. And, with especially with some of the older folks we have in the county, I mean, we have, I'm at least happy to say, I mean, we have a really great relationship with the Fort Bend County Meals on Wheels. Colorado Valley Transit, is our, public transportation provider in Waller County. Those are things, going forward, obviously, as the need has arisen, and if there ends up being an increase in that need, then we'll work with them to make sure those needs are served. Even our own sheriff's department, in the midst of all this, started a program where if you knew of someone with limited mobility that needed groceries, needed medication, the sheriff's department was basically making sure that happened. And I mean, literally, we have deputies that would go to Brookshire Brothers and load groceries in the back of their patrol car and take it to an elderly person who was at risk and really shouldn't be out shopping. And so we were making sure those folks were taken care of. But it highlights all the different, when you get into these situations, there's things that you just probably maybe never thought of that have to be addressed, and it presents a new challenge. That's why this is it's new territory for everybody, and it changes daily.
Right. Absolutely. And talking about, kind of food and deliveries and things like that, obviously freight, huge piece during, certainly when we were all under lockdown, and Amazon and all of that. So kind of thoughts on freight for Waller County, and it kind of being able to access the goods and people getting what they needed. How did that feel? Grocery stores, kind of the full list.
Well, God bless our truck drivers, right? I mean, we saw, it wasn't that long ago that, I know a lot of us walked in the grocery store and, the toilet paper aisle was empty, the toilet, the paper towel aisle, all of those things. And those things, they don't get there without a truck bringing it to that store. Right. And those folks kept things moving. It took a while, but eventually things got back. And you cannot underscore the importance of freight movement during this type of event, and making sure that those trucks get from point A to point B, that they have the roads they need to do that. We have a lot of the distribution centers is what we now have on the south end of the county, like Amazon, Medline. Medline, which is a great Waller County corporate partner, who is now building a new distribution center on the south end of the county that they're going to expand their footprint greatly. I had a great conversation with them the other day. I had no idea, one, that they were as large as they were, 45 locations across the United States, and they supply to most of the major hospital networks. And when it comes to PPE, they're the guys that are making sure that PPE gets to those hospitals. So those trucks, and being able to make sure those trucks can get in and out. And, we're working that on the south end of the county right now, with Amazon, Costco, Medline. You've got, of course, Igloo, Goya, Ross is under construction now. And we're already making sure that working on expanding and improving all the road infrastructure around those facilities to facilitate and make sure those trucks can get out, get on the highway, and get where they need to go.
Right. And talking about kind of the road construction piece, and as you prepare, because, you know, while Waller County is rural, all of the things that we're receiving in the more urban areas are being housed and brought from areas like Waller County. So
Right.
looking at the needs and the transportation needs, can you talk about your transportation plan and what the status of it is now? I know it went through HGAC, I think either last year or the year before. So can you give an update on that?
Yeah, we just this past year, really the beginning of this year, put the finishing touches on an update of our thoroughfare plan and concluding the mobility study, which we did through HGAC. And that was, I think that was a $500,000 study made available to us through HGAC. We had a $100,000 match, which not only the county, but every municipality participated in and made sure that we all had skin in the game. Right. And I'm really proud of we did a good job. A lot of the things that have been identified are actually already are in the process of being addressed or are on tech stock plans. Pretty much if you look at almost every major highway, I-10's already, they're already expanding I-10 through Waller County. 290 will start. It won't be long before they'll start expanding it through the remainder of Waller County. Now they're looking from Highway 6 all the way out towards Chapel Hill. They're now soliciting input and comments on that portion. And then all of our FM roads, which, long-term are going to need to be expanded to accommodate the growth that we're going to have, whether we like it or not. And we are trying to do things a little different in Waller County. If somebody actually takes the time to go in and look at our strategic plan, we do want to try to maintain, even though we know that some of that growth is inevitable.
Right.
We still are trying to maintain some of the rural and cultural heritage that makes Waller County special in terms of our history. Especially you look at areas like the Katy Prairie Conservancy. That's an important part of Waller County. There's going to come a time where we're going to look at that and say, thank God we kept that land from being developed, and it's still in a state where people can go and enjoy it. It can provide relief to us from a drainage and a flood standpoint. Those are things that are important. And we really do want to, we know I-10 and 290 are going to expand. Most people in Waller County are comfortable with medium and high density development occurring along those corridors. But then the middle of the county where you have that you still have that agricultural presence, we want to maintain that to the greatest extent possible. I think that becomes more important to people as we go forward. Like you see more and more people that love to get their fruits and vegetables at a farmer's market where they can actually talk to the farmer and find out, what pesticides did he use or not use. And we want to keep that feel in Waller County. So we're trying to do that to the best of our ability. And if you actually look at our mobility plan and our thoroughfare plan, I think for the first time ever on a thoroughfare plan, rather than just do a 1 mile overlay with a grid pattern, we actually went in, especially in the middle of our county, and said, maybe we don't need as many lines. And so we actually took some lines off the map. Right. Now, if somebody wants to come in there and they're going to buy, 1,000 acres and develop a subdivision, as long as they comply with our subdivision regulations, I can't stop that. Right. But I also don't want to encourage it either if that's an area we really like to see maintained as a rural area with agriculture. So we're trying to do the best, but I think we're doing a good, it's unique. I don't think you're going to find very many other counties that are trying to balance this, the growth with the rural heritage. But I think we've done a good job, and I think we are doing a good job preparing for the infrastructure needs. I mean, we've got more trucks on the road now on our FM roads than we ever had before. Right. So that's why those FM roads are going to have to accommodate some of that. But we can also, if we improve 290 going through and improve the interchange in Hempstead, we can get better. And I think we will. Right. I think we will. So.
Right. And I appreciate you sharing the vantage point of kind of what I would call the county, the character of the county, right? So, and wanting to preserve that and wanting to balance, sure, it's wonderful to have businesses come in and set up shop, and which helps, fund county needs in other ways, but you want to preserve the quality of life for your residents as well. And I think that's a daily balance. So really, really appreciate that. Looking ahead and, through COVID, beyond COVID, and I joked with Judge Sebesta during our chat, because I said, well, maybe COVID's easier to talk about than the session. And he kind of agreed. That was his exact, I think you just did the exact motion that he made. So I'll ask you the same question I asked Judge Sebesta, and that is, looking ahead, knowing that we don't know a lot, knowing that we don't know, what are your top priorities that you're looking at for the session?
Well, I didn't get a chance to see Judge Sebesta's chat, but I have a feeling he and I are probably on the same page in this regards. I was really disappointed, and I'm just going to be bluntly honest, and I always have been. I was really disappointed in the last session, and the way that local officials were vilified as being part of the problem when it came to property taxes. I'm a firm believer that the government which is best is that which is closest to the people. Mm-hmm. I don't think you get any closer than county government or a municipal government. We interact with our constituents on a daily basis at the grocery store, at the car wash, at the local McDonald's. And we are going to do what we need to do to make sure the needs are addressed. And I've said it once, to tie our hands behind our back, and say that we're part of the problem. It wasn't fair, and it wasn't truthful, to be honest. And I know, and trust me, property tax reform is an important issue, but right. I will give you a perfect example of why I don't need somebody from Austin telling us here in Waller County right. what we need to be doing on property taxes. We passed a $39.5 million bond in 2017 to build a new justice center, which was a new jail, a new sheriff's office, and a new court building. The bond passed, very successful. Those buildings, we issued those bonds in 2018, into 2017 and 2018. We issued in both years. We started construction. Those buildings are now about to be finished. They are ahead of schedule. They're everything. We are on budget as far as those buildings are concerned. And we issued those bonds. Prior to that, we had reduced the tax rate in Waller County every year for 5 consecutive years in preparation for that bond. We had gotten our tax rate down for Waller County. We had gotten down to around 62 cents or 61 cents. Then the bond, we issued the bond debt. Right. The year after the bond debt hit, our tax rate went from 62 to basically 68 cents. Okay. And we knew that was going to happen. I mean, for Waller County, I know $39.5 million bond is pocket change to our neighbor county, but for us, that's a big hit on our budget. But again, when we went into that, we told people that with the growth we've had, we would absorb that. It would eventually, we'd be able to get back to cutting the tax rate as soon as that, that blip. Right. The following year, last year, this budget cycle, we cut the tax rate. And now here we are, and we're working on a budget right now that is, believe it or not, a no new revenue budget. It's an effective rate budget. It used to be called effective rate. Now it's called no new revenue. Because I looked at this year, I realized, people are unemployed. We have small business owners that are hurting. Some of them have closed and may not reopen. And so I said, what can we do in Waller County to respond to this and to help people as much? But meanwhile, our property values are skyrocketing because of the growth. So Andrea, a perfect example of how responsive local government is. is, the budget we're working on right now, if it passes the way I proposed it, which is a no new revenue budget, it will cut the tax rate 4.5 cents. It will return us to a level that was lower than 2017. So basically, we've done the jail bond, we've built the buildings on schedule, and now folks they might have paid a little bit more in taxes last year, maybe a couple $100, and then that's it. The jail is paid for, and we're now back to a tax rate that we had prior to that. In fact, a tax rate that's probably the lowest tax rate we've had in over about 20 years. So we respond to folks. So to have somebody from Austin tell me that we need to be capped because we're out of control, I'm sorry. And you touched on it earlier. There's 254 counties in the state of Texas.
Right.
Every single one of those counties is different. Their needs are completely different. So to paint all of us with the same brush and say that we need, we've got to be reined in, it's very disingenuous, and I don't appreciate it. I don't know if this next session is going to be any different. I hope it is. But what I've seen in the past, I will say this, I think Dennis Bonnen has announced that he won't be running for reelection. I'll just say it. I think that's a good thing. The contempt that he had for local officials, I think, was appalling. And it's just, there's a reason why Texas was founded the way it was, because the founders understood local control was the most important thing for Texas. And that's why we have county judges. That's why we have commissioners courts. That's why we're set up the way we are. So, I think we've done as much as we can to make sure we're responsive to people, but we still have to meet needs. We still got roads that got to be paved. We still have, elections that have to be held. We've got so many. When you're in a growing county, thank God our economic development program has been as successful as it is. And I'll give a shout out at this point to Vince Yoakum and the Waller County EDP. Mm-hmm. The projects that we've done, like Amazon, like Ross, Goya, Igloo, Burkhart compressors, a legacy.
Right.
These are the programs that are enabling us to continue to grow and still have a no new revenue budget. It's not that we're not growing this year. This budget we're preparing, we will be adding 10 employees, which we have to add to meet the needs.
Right.
But that's all going to be paid for by new revenue from new value and will not come out of the pocket of our residential taxpayers.
Very, very interesting. Well, and it is, it's a lot more involved than just a simple, we're going to cap, property tax. It just isn't that simple, and it sounds good in a soundbite, but when you actually play it out, it involves a myriad of issues. And one of the things that, at TAG we talk about, and we were involved in some of these local control conversations, and we have been and will continue to be, because it does affect transportation. That's one of the pieces that's not mandated from the state for the counties to fund. And so if you have to cut because there's a mandate coming from the state to fund things, it's often, in many counties, it's transportation and flood control. And so, leaving it up to the counties to make that decision is critical. And one of the things we're looking at for the session too is just, it's not mandating, but it's enabling, right? So relaxing things that either are capped for some municipalities, not necessarily Waller County or cities in Waller County, municipalities in Waller County, the sales tax is capped, right? And there are some areas that would absolutely want to relax that cap and have the option to use it for either infrastructure, which would then in turn create economic development opportunities, but they cannot, right? So those types of things. If there was a situation where a more rural county wanted to fund a transportation plan and didn't have the means to do so, could they institute a local gas tax? So things like that, where it really isn't the state kind of controlling all the pieces. Obviously, too, we want transportation money to stay where it is and not be moved and shifted and diverted. So those are really our priorities marching in. You mentioned autonomous vehicles, alternatively fueled vehicles in general. The numbers are low right now, but we know they're going to increase. How are we capturing the usage fees that go along with those vehicles that are not paying into the gas tax? So, but really making sure that it's a user fee based.
Yeah, there has to be some mechanism. I mean, I understand, you know, you have more of these vehicles on the road, but they are using the same roads, the same concrete, the same pavement that's been laid and paid for either by the state or the county or whichever the case may be.
Right.
But yet they're not contributing to the gas tax, which is the primary source of revenue we use to pay for those items. You got to figure something out. You've got to have some kind of equitable fee or alternative so that we all, you know, if you use the roads, we all have to pay our share for those roads and to maintain those roads. Going back to what you just said, like on the state sales tax, you know, we are in Waller County. We are in the early stages. We're looking at, you know, maybe setting up some county assistance districts so that we can try to capture some of those pennies so that we can, you know, for whether it's emergency services or helping to repave, you know, maintain those roads. And, you know, it would be nice if it wasn't such a process to have to go through in order to do that. I really don't think people, you know, when they go to a gas station, they notice whether they're paying 6 1/4 or 8 1/4. Mm-hmm. And I think you could do 8 1/4 across the state, but let the counties. And if you want to put limitations on what that money can be used for, I have no problem with that because we have so many needs, whether it's emergency services, roads, economic development, you name it. We've got needs. And we're not the only ones. So it'd be nice if some things can be done to put a few more tools in the toolbox.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, you know, the piece with the gas tax is that there is an education component. You know, 25 cents, a quarter on the dollar goes to education every time, you know, you go to fill up your car. And so there is a piece of education that's also elevated and given attention when you talk about the gas tax. So those are all some of the things that we're looking at. And I know we will continue to have these conversations with you and some of our state leaders and our representatives. And, you know, one of the things that was also mentioned by Judge Sebesto was he did shine some light on the fact that there are very few, or I don't know if any, state leaders that have served in a county role. And so that could be some of the gap, right? Where there's a knowledge gap there as to kind of understanding some of the county stuff. So I know at TAG, we're going to be really intentional in our conversations as we do our legislative agenda and we unveil it and go around to the different legislators from our region and beyond. We're going to have some of those conversations and kind of encourage, I don't know if it's a County 101, I don't know what it is, but that dialogue and that knowledge that needs to be looked at. It really does.
I will say this, if you want to bring any of those state leaders to Waller County, I'd be happy to take them around and show them how we do business here in Waller County and how we respond to our constituents and the needs and the challenges we have. You know, I would do that just so they understand every time they pass an unfunded mandate, but they tie my hands behind my back with a revenue cap, what they're doing to us, because that means I've got to pay for something else we're required to do by law. But I have the same amount, you know, I only have a limited number of dollars to do that with. So something's going to have to get cut.
Right.
We're very fortunate to be in the position we have, to have the growth that we have, and to have the new revenue that we've got. But I know the vast majority of counties right now in the state of Texas are not in the same position we are. They are not in a position to pass a no new revenue budget. I would venture to guess at this point that we will be probably one of only a handful of counties in the entire state of Texas that will pass a no new revenue budget. I think most of them, I don't blame them, are going to pass 3.5%, or I know some counties, even some larger ones to the east of us, are looking at ways of getting around that cap right now because of the pandemic, which probably maybe doesn't really meet with the spirit of the exception, but it is what it is. But, you know, here we are, we're delivering a tax cut in the middle of all this, and we're fortunate and we're blessed to be able to do that. And that's what we'll continue to do. But we balance everything we do best we can. We understand we're taxpayers, man. We live in this county. You know,
Right.
we own property. You know, we have the same issues when the appraisals come in and we're like, oh my God, you know, really? So, you know, with this no new revenue, even though I heard from a lot of people that were getting sticker shock when they got their appraisals, on average, we're going to nullify those increases in those appraisals with this budget we're about to pass and deliver. And, you know, for some people, they'll be paying less
Right.
this coming year than they did in last year. So,
Right.
you know, we can't be any more responsive than that. And I would love to have state officials come down there and see how we're doing things so they realize that they're painting us with a broad brush.
Right.
That not every county is a bad guy. Not every county is, at odds with what, I know they're trying to do. I mean, I really like to think that to some extent we're all on the same team.
Right.
But I don't know, the way things have gone the last couple of sessions, man, it has become really divisive.
Right.
And this local versus state, I'm really disappointed to see that.
Yeah.
So I hope it changes. I really do, because, it's funny. Some of the state officials, when we have, emergencies or we have floods or hurricanes, they're down here and, they don't hesitate to come down here for, photo op and stand next to us while we're doing our job down here. But then when the session starts, like all of a sudden now we're second class citizens.
Right.
It's just not right. We're doing everything we can to take care of our folks.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And, in closing, I always like to ask what personally you have learned through this so far, or what's been surprising to you. You've gone through all the iterations of the professional hat that you wear, which you've done an incredible job. And thank you for walking us through a lot of detail and a lot of things for us to think about. Right. But personally, kind of what has been your experience and what have you taken away from everything?
Well, I'm in my 6th year, and I'd like to say I'm a little bit more laid back now than I was in the first few years. Of course, the first few years it was all emergency management. I never really I didn't know anything different
Right.
because we just went from one flood to another. Then I finally got a little bit of a break, and we got to finally start focusing on some of the other things we want to do here. Like, for example, we're still in the middle of putting together the first ever parks, green space, and trail plan for the county. A lot
Right.
of people were surprised to find out we have we don't have any county parks in Waller County. But going forward, we have to start thinking about that, and we have to have a plan in place.
Right.
And so now I'm finally get to do some of the things that I really want to do that I think will have a long-term impact on the quality of life here in Waller County. I've learned it's been hard because, as an attorney who's been practicing for 25 years and did a lot of litigation, I like to engage with people all the time. And I've had to learn not to, I guess the best way to put it is not to wrestle with the pigs. Because, when you wrestle with the pigs,
Right.
The fact of the matter is you both get dirty and the pigs like it.
I've heard that recently, and it was instructive for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was, it's taken me a while, and I finally gotten to that point where I'm, and look, I understand as much as anybody, you cannot make everybody happy all the time.
Right.
But, all we can do is work our butt off, keep people informed, be committed to transparency, do as good a job as we can, and really be honest with folks in the process. I think we've done a really good job. I will say this, we have one of the best teams of local officials in Waller County. I would put the team of officials we have here up against any other slate of county officials anywhere in the state of Texas. I always go to conferences. I was just at one yesterday in College Station. Mm-hmm. And it's always funny because I hear a lot of commissioners and county judges, and they'll always talk about, yeah, our auditor hates our county judge, or the sheriff and the county judge hate each other. And it's, or they have the court that's just doesn't work well together. And, here in Waller County, our county auditor, Alan Younts, Joan Sargent, our treasurer, our clerks, everybody works together. We are all pulling in the same direction. We have a great court, very cohesive,
Right.
and we're all working as a unit.
Right.
And man, when you can get everybody pulling in the same direction, it is absolutely amazing what you can get done. And
Right.
when you look at what we've accomplished in the last 6 years, um, given the challenges we faced, I'm very proud of that. I think we've done a good job. We've got good economic development. We've slowly put plans in place. We've got a strategic plan, long-term mobility plan, updated thoroughfare plan, working on a parks plan, and we're gonna keep doing the things we need to do to make sure we keep that quality of life at that high level, or even raise it if we can. Which
Right. No,
I
you're
think we can certainly are capable of doing that. So
right.
yeah, I am really blessed to be in the position I am and to be able to work around the folks that I do. And our county employees here do a great job taking care of folks. During this whole pandemic, we've never shut down. This county, our commissioners court still continues to meet weekly. We do it a little differently than we did in the past. A lot of other entities, it's online, or it's a telephone call.
Right.
We have continued to operate from day one, and Waller County has continued to be open for business. We just had to make some changes. We had to adapt, and we've
Right.
done that.
Right.
So, but yeah, everything's, we're doing great, man. Every day's a new day.
That's right. Well, really appreciate just all your leadership and your time today, and really walking us through a lot of the day-to-day decisions that you have to make and that you've had to adapt to with the pandemic, and even before and as we move forward. It's every day's a new day, and adapting is part of the role, whether it's a flood or a pandemic, a
Right.
hurricane. So really appreciate your time, and look forward to future conversations, and how we can work alongside and partner on mobility and other issues that are impacted as a result of mobility, because we know that everything's connected, and we've learned that tremendously.
Well, and let me end with this. And I do appreciate the opportunity and the time to be with you today and to talk about Waller County. I don't ever want to pass up an opportunity to talk about Waller County.
Right.
But I do appreciate everything that you guys do at TAG, and the advocacy that y'all provide for the region. It's important, and without y'all, I'd hate to think where we would be at this point in time. Because y'all do a good job of looking forward and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Right.
And I do appreciate all the efforts y'all do in that regards, and all of your membership and your volunteers and your staff.
Well, thank you so much, Judge, and stay safe and healthy, and just keep doing all the great work that you're doing.
We'll do that.
That was Homeside Chats. We hope you enjoyed today's program. This series would not be possible without the support of our 2020 mobility partners. We thank you for all of your partnership. Stay tuned for more episodes of Homeside Chats.